Stand by to launch FanStream Sports.
3, 2, 1.
Let's start.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to FanStream Sports. Nothing but pure sports. This is the JP Show.
JP, it is so good to hear you back on the air.
Stand by. Now, here's JP.
All right, welcome in to a Monday edition of the JP Peterson Show. Nick Yetty's coming in today, filling in for JP. JP taking a day off here, so I'm going to be steering this ship today solo. Hope to have a fun one. Good afternoon to everyone out there in Tampa Bay. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope everybody had a great weekend. It was a scorcher out there. Horrible weather right now here in the Tampa Bay area, but could be worse. It always could be worse. But with that being said, no Bucs training camp today. They had the day off. They had the day off yesterday as well as they prepare for joint practices with the Tennessee Titans before, yes, the preseason opener. I know everybody last week was talking about we finally made it to football, and we had that disaster of a football game on Thursday night, which, to be fair, the Hall of Fame game is never the prettiest football game you're ever going to see, and that held true this past Thursday between the Lions and Chargers. But for what it's worth, we have the Bucs' first preseason game this coming Saturday. Will the starters play? How much will they play? Those are always going to be the discussions going in to the first preseason game. And they are facing the Titans. And of course, that means probably you're going to see Cam Ward, I would assume, for the Tennessee Titans making his NFL debut. So there should be some shine on this game. But they're going to have the joint practices this week. And the big news coming out of the end of last week for the Bucs at training camp was the absence of Baker Mayfield. And I know that was a big deal on Friday. And of course, Todd Bowles got out in front of it and said that it was just a hand contusion for Baker Mayfield. So it sounds like they avoided anything major and he should return to practice tomorrow. But nonetheless, when the starting quarterback misses practice for whatever reason, it's always going to be not a big deal in this case, because it just seems like it's something minor, but it's definitely going to be a talking point. And at the very least, it opens us back up to this conversation that we were having throughout last week. I know me and JP had it on last Monday's show, and it was the conversation about Kyle Trask. And it really comes down to the fact that if you've listened to Todd Bowles throughout this offseason, if you listen to Jason Licht throughout this offseason, and if you've listened to the players speak throughout this offseason, they believe that they have a team, they have a roster that is capable of contending for the Super Bowl. Now, I think that's the goal for every team going into the season, but we know realistically there's about, at the most, 10 to 12 teams who realistically have a shot of contending for the Super Bowl. I tend to believe that the Bucs are one of those 10 to 12 teams. That's just the way I feel about it. I think most of us are probably on board that they're one of those 10 to 12 teams. When you look at the talent that is all over this roster and what they were able to add to this roster through free agency and the draft. And so when your starting quarterback goes down for a couple practices and you start looking at Kyle Trask getting more snaps and in a training camp and whatnot, and we had that discussion last week of, is Kyle Trask good enough to be the backup quarterback? If Baker Mayfield, something happened and he got hurt and he had to miss a game or two or three or whatever, and Kyle Trask came in, is he good enough to win this team some games? And it is an undeniable fact, and I did some research on this ahead of today's show, that Kyle Trask, even though he has been in the league since 2021, it's hard to believe that this is now the fifth year for Kyle Trask on this Bucs roster. He has an argument to be the most inexperienced backup in the National Football League when it comes to playing time. Kyle Trask was the third string quarterback in 21. Obviously to Blaine Gabbert. 2022, he got 9 attempts. And I believe that came in that final game against Atlanta, right? Where he had the 9 attempts. He had 1 attempt in 2023, and he had 1 attempt last year. So he's had 11 passes in real NFL game action. Now, That's not Kyle Trask's fault. If anything, that just shows you that the Bucs have gotten really lucky in that their starting quarterbacks have not gone down with injury. And so there hasn't been a need to have to go to Kyle Trask, and cross your fingers that it doesn't get to that point this year. But when you look at all the other backup quarterbacks around the league, and I went and looked at every backup quarterback for all the 32 teams around the league, and when you do that, you will find that every other backup quarterback around the league, for the most part, has had a decent sample size of playing time in real NFL regular season action. Whether that's Tyson Bagent for the Chicago Bears, whether that's Davis Mills for the Houston Texans, and all the way down to who right now is the best backup in the league. And that's going to be probably Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, and guys like that. If you look at some of the other teams that are contending for Super Bowls and some of the backup quarterbacks they have, is Kyle Trask in the same ballpark as those dudes? I would argue not. And we're talking about Cooper Rush, who's the backup in Baltimore. We're talking about Gardner Minshew, who's the backup in Kansas City. And some other examples of that as well around the league with some of the better teams in the NFL. So it is sort of worth questioning that if something did happen to Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask had to come in, what scares you about it is the unknown. With all of these other quarterbacks, you have a varying degree of what am I going to get out of this quarterback? With Kyle Trask, you just don't know. And the unknown is what scares you the most, right? And that's the thing that's going against Kyle Trask right now. And I've always asked this question, in the 5 years that he's been here, has he taken a step forward? And when you hear reports at a camp, it's like he's inconsistent a lot in practices. I know I heard that he had his best practice of the season on Friday. And maybe that had to do with the fact that, listen, when Kyle Trask is out there, he's not throwing to Mike Evans. He's not throwing to Chris Godwin. He's not throwing to Chris Godwin. He's not even out there right now. He's not throwing to Mike Evans. He's not throwing to Emeka Ibuka or any of the ones or stuff like that. He's throwing to the 2s and the 3s and whatnot. So maybe that's part of it. But I'm not convinced that Kyle Trask in the 5 years that he's been here has probably improved to the level that you want, even though that Todd Bowles, seems to love him and talks him up and stuff like that. But could be coach speak, could be that they actually believe in him. I don't know. But it is just worth monitoring, Kyle Trask's role on this team. And Todd Bowles hasn't shut down the fact that they might be looking to add a quarterback, and they only have two quarterbacks out there, or 3 quarterbacks out there, with Baker, Trask, and Bazelak. So will they add a veteran at some point? That's sort of like the discussion that's going on. So it's something to at least monitor, I would say, because you want to have confidence that if something did happen, that your backup could come in and can do a decent job for you, especially when you're a team that's in your Super Bowl window and you can't afford to punt games or lose games that you shouldn't. So just something to keep monitoring. And the other big note that came out of camp, and I believe this was on Saturday, was the Bucs started going and looking at a different offensive line lineup at one point during Saturday's practice, in which Graham Barton was at left tackle, Elijah Klein, the 2024 6th-round pick, was at left guard, and then Ben Bredesen slid over to center. And Todd said that this was basically an exercise in emergency. So if it got to a point where they were really banged up and they needed to put the 5 best guys on the line, Graham Barton did play left tackle a bit when he was at Duke. So they wanted to be prepared for that situation. And I definitely like that, because I have my doubts of how the Bucs are going to hold up without Tristan Wirfs. Now, Tristan Wirfs is already at this point probably one of the 10 best Buccaneers to ever do it. He's only, 5 years into his entire NFL career, but in my opinion, he's already one of the 10 best Buccaneers of all time. He's on a trajectory that's going to land him a gold jacket in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So asking anybody to replace that guy is probably not fair. But it sounds like from everything you read out of camp and everything, and we talked with JP a lot, you've seen a lot of inconsistencies out of Charlie Heck. And of course you are, because this is a backup tackle in the NFL. And, Yaya has worked him over, Hassan Reddick has worked him over and whatnot. And so as it stands right now, Tristan probably is not going to be available for week 1. He probably isn't going to be available for week 2. So at the very best case scenario, you're probably looking at Tristan Wirfs coming back for week 3, which is the home opener against the New York Jets. And this does concern me because more than any year before it is so important for the Bucs to get off to a good start. And last year they got off to a good start. The year before that they got off to a good start before they went to that middle stretch of their schedule and they started losing games and they had to make it up all at the end. I don't want to go down that route again. But first 2 games of the season, assuming you're without Wirfs, you're going to go on the road against Atlanta. That's a divisional game on a road against a team that beat you twice last year. So that's not going to be an easy task for you. And then you go on the road to play the Houston Texans, a team that made the playoffs in each of the last 2 seasons. I think they're going to be really good this year. So those are 2 tough games right out of the gate, and doing that without your franchise player and Tristan Wirfs at a premium position such as left tackle, that's going to be really difficult to do. And with Charlie Heck out there, you can't leave him on an island. You're going to have to do a lot of different things schematically to sort of cover up for him, the same way they had to do last year a little bit for Justin Schooley when he had to come in and fill in. So, yeah, the fact that they're already looking at contingency plans in the event that they have to put the 5 best out there, because at the end of the day, no matter what level of football you're at, from peewee to high school, college, pro, you want to have the 5 best guys on the offensive line for you. And if it gets to that scenario where Barton has to kick out to left tackle, Klein has to play guard, and Bredesen at center, if Charlie Heck's just not holding up, then so be it. That's what's going to have to happen. Is this ideal? No. None of this is ideal. I would love to have Tristan Wirfs out there and have Graham Barton playing center and Ben Bredesen playing left guard and Cody Mauch at right guard and Gedeke at right tackle, because when that line is completely healthy, as we saw last year, it's one of the top handful offensive lines in the NFL. But that's not the reality we live in, so the Bucs are going to have to get a little bit creative as they sort of game plan how they want to approach the start of this season without Tristan Wirfs, and then obviously hoping that his absence is not going to be something that lingers beyond, hopefully, the first 2 weeks of the season. But it's very important for him to get off to that good start because, Atlanta and Houston, as I mentioned, and then you get the Jets in week 3, which they're a complete wild card. I don't know what they're going to look like this year. But then you enter a pretty tough stretch of football where you get the Eagles again, and I know the Bucs have had a lot of success against the Eagles in the regular season, but this is still the defending Super Bowl champions, so that's going to be a tough game. And then you got to go all the way out to Seattle to play the Seahawks, and then you get the 49ers, you get the Lions. Those are 4 pretty tough games after those first 3. So if the Bucs got off to an 0-2 start and you're having to play catch up and then you have to play 4 really good teams like that, it's not ideal, especially when in the second half of the season, you still have to play the Bills, you still have to play the Rams, you still have to play the Falcons again and your divisional opponents as well. So again, similar to the Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask conversation, this is also worth monitoring if the Bucs have to use this makeshift offensive line at some point or not. The good news is they're testing it out in practice. This is something that you definitely want to see your team doing. You don't want to get into a situation where you have to put them out there in real snaps playing positions they haven't played before in the NFL and just hoping that it works. So they're getting that work in right now, and that's good. But again, hopefully Tristan Wirfs can get back healthy at some point and they can make the most of it. Just wanted to play the audio here because JP was at the practice on Friday, and he was right there front and center speaking to Bulls. And I'm going to go ahead and play the clip right here. This was him talking about the Baker injury from Friday's practice and a little bit about Kyle Trask so far in training camp.
I've got a sore hand. We gave him the day off. He's day to day, and we're not worried about it. Just sore over the past few days. It's been an accumulation of days, and we just thought we'd give him a day off.
How do you think Kyle Trask looked today working with the one?
Probably the best he's looked since we've been in camp. One of his better days. He made quicker decisions. He got the ball out of his hands. He did some good things. Probably have to see the tape to see the rest of it.
85 here, Green, making some plays and making some grabs. They're going to touch down earlier in practice today.
You know, he was a former quarterback, so putting him at wide out, he's been a work in progress, but he's been coming along fine. He's very quick. He's got a lot of speed. He's got a skill set to develop, to learn to play the position. I think he's coming along nicely.
Yeah, that last note there was about Garrett Green, who's the former West Virginia quarterback who is now trying to make it as a receiver here in the NFL, and he's here with in Bucs camp. So that was that last question there. But he did mention Trask, and he talked about how playing with the ones on Friday with Baker hurt, he seemed to have his best performance of camp, and that is encouraging. It certainly is. And he talked about the fact that he was making quicker decisions. I think that's the number one thing when you watch Kyle Trask play is everything just seems a little bit slow. It looks a little bit hesitant. And I've used the word clunky a lot to sort of describe Kyle Trask when he's playing quarterback when we've seen him in these preseason games. So hopefully he's taken a step forward. Again, he's had 5 years in this organization, and he knows the system, so that gives him a leg up on any other quarterback that they could bring in. And as we mentioned last week, there's just really not a lot out there to look at when it comes to free agent quarterbacks who have some experience. I mean, there's Tyler Huntley, there's CJ Beathard, and there's Carson Wentz. And every other quarterback is probably not even worth entertaining. So we'll see if the Bucs do that. But again, joint practices here with the Tennessee Titans coming up, and in many ways, I think these joint practices have become more important than the actual preseason games itself. It's a good chance to see how you level up against another team. Now, granted, the Tennessee Titans did have the first pick in the NFL draft this year, so this was the worst team in football last season, going up against a team that's won the division now 5 years in a row. But nonetheless, it's still, pretty good work to get in against another team for now, and we'll get to the preseason game on Saturday. How much should the starters play? I mean, I would put them out there for a drive. I think that's sort of where I've landed on when it comes to the preseason is get the starters out there for one drive, let them go through the operation, shake any rust off that they have, allow these guys to get hit just a little bit and get back into the flow of things, and then get them out of there. And especially with Tristan Wirfs already going down with the injury, especially with Chris Godwin still making his way back from last year's injury, and then Baker Mayfield obviously with the hand injury, I don't want to take any chances. Don't want to take any chances at all, especially for a team that, is in a Super Bowl window right now, and they're really confident that they're one of those handful of teams that can contend this year. Don't take any chances. Get one drive, do your thing, and get out of there. And I think that's probably what you're going to see this Saturday at Raymond James Stadium for that first preseason game. So we'll look ahead to that. Plenty of talk coming this week on this show as we inch closer to that. All right, let's take our first break of the day here. And when we come back, I'm going to shift gears to the Rays. Oh, the Rays. Not a great week in a baseball for the Rays, but did we really expect anything else? Did we really expect anything different than what we saw this weekend? No. We'll break it all down, but as always, thank you to the great sponsors of this show, Riveters, Italiano Insurance, the Gold and Diamond Source, On-Site Construction Restoration, and Cafe Paradiso. As always, thank you guys so much for Third Generation Services Plumbing as well. So when we get back here, we will break down the Rays weekend against the Dodgers and look ahead to this big West Coast road trip they're going on. Stay with us, back in forth.
Although it may seem tempting to go without healthcare insurance, the financial risk far outweighs the gain you may experience. For example, did you know if you simply broke your leg, it could cost you nearly $7,500? Put on top of that a hospital stay, you could be looking at $10,000 to $15,000. Insuring that you don't go uncovered is so important, as according to CNBC, high medical bills are the highest contributing factor to why Americans end up taking money out of their retirement savings, or worse, find themselves filing bankruptcy. So go to don'tgouncovered.com or call 800-669-1505. Now, depending on your income, you can get plans for zero premium. Our experts will guide you through the process effortlessly. They will shop many plans and find the one that's right for you. I called and I have full health coverage through Florida Blue for zero monthly premium. It's a free call. So why go uncovered? It's a huge risk. Go to don'tgouncovered.com or call 800-669-1505. That's 800-669-1505. Spring means a time of renewal and Rays baseball, and the folks at Italiano Insurance want to welcome the Rays to Tampa and remind you it's time to renew those insurance policies with the now famous Italiano Insurance Checkup. Let the experienced and friendly agents shop your policy for the best price and coverage. Famous for saving me over $1,000 on our auto insurance last year and over $500 on our homeowners. Now that's a grand slam. Might as well get a double play by adding flood insurance and business insurance to your portfolio. Costs less than you think, and trust me, you do not want to risk your home or personal wealth. That's a big whiff. So step up to the plate and call 813-877-7799 and chat with the all-star agents at Italiano Insurance. 813-877-7799 or go to ItalianoInsurance.com. Go Rays! JP here for Riveters, our new official sports bar and grill of the JP Peterson Show. And just like our show, no BS, no corporate chain feel, just amazing, authentic folks serving great comfort food in a casual atmosphere at unheard of prices. Riveters is located just south of Raymond James and Steinbrenner Field on Dale Mabry, walking distance to the park, so free parking, great place for pregame and postgame. Let's talk about fresh food. Nothing is frozen. Burgers, wings, prime rib, roasted fresh daily, never frozen. That makes a huge difference. The mahi, the salmon, also super fresh. All our sauces are original recipes made in-house. Our Warhawk chili and fully loaded potato soup is made fresh in-house. It's the best food anywhere, served by people who actually care. Riveters on Dale Mabry, just north of 275, just south of where the Bucs and Rays play. We'll see you there. Are you looking to renovate your home, rebuild after the hurricanes, or build your dream home from scratch? Well, let me tell you about my friend Jason Fawcett and On-Site Construction. They have over 1,450 satisfied clients, 25 years of experience, over 500 designs, and a talented team of over 40 construction professionals. They believe building something exceptional begins by truly focusing on all the details, even the smallest ones. We understand that construction can be a daunting process, and we're here to make it as smooth and stress-free as possible. Quality is non-negotiable at On-Site Construction. We use the finest materials, employ the most skilled tradespeople, and adhere to the highest industry standards to deliver a product we're proud of and that you're going to love. Our project management is meticulous with a focus on completing projects on time and on budget. Your happiness is our primary driver. So give us a call at 813-579-5789 or check out our incredible website at onsiteconstructionfl.com. Are you having legal issues with a business partner or other legal business issues? The attorneys at Walters, Levine & DeGrave can help. Call 800-616-0384 for a free consultation. At Walters, Levine & DeGrave, we've redefined what a law firm can be with top-tier attorneys, personal service, and 26 years of success. From business law to civil litigation, we deliver smart, client-focused solutions. Walters, Levine & DeGrave recently won a $6.4 million jury verdict from a large real estate developer, and they can win for you too. Walters, Levine & DeGrave. Let's solve it together. Not attorney spokesman. For a free consultation, call 800-616-0384 or go to walterslevine.com. Offices Tampa, Sarasota.
Let's go.
Right now, back to the show on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to a Monday edition of the JP Peterson Show here. Nick Betty's riding solo, filling in for JP today. Hey, I want to tell you guys a little bit about Golden Diamond Source. They've been a great sponsor for this show for a long time. From I do to I still do, the Golden Diamond Source is there for every special moment in your lives. I went to the Golden Diamond Source when I was buying my now wife her engagement ring, and they were wonderful, great, world-class experience over there on Omerton Road. No matter what your budget is, they will guide you from your first diamond purchase to upgrading your golden diamond source diamond at 100% of its value for a bigger, better diamond. 100% of your diamond's value you can't get anywhere else. Enjoy their beautiful, relaxing bridal salon and selection from the most extensive collection of diamond engagement rings, anniversary rings, and wedding bands. Did you know that you can purchase a $5,000 piece of jewelry or an engagement ring and pay as little as $83 a month? If you want her to say, I do, or I still do, be sure to choose a diamond from the Gold in Diamond Source. So thank you so much for their sponsorship of this show over the years, and go check them out. All right, let's transition to the Rays. And let me start off by saying the fact that football season is here. You know, we have the first preseason game this week. We're getting very close to week 1 of the regular season. The fact that football season is here, and also before you know it, the Lightning are going to be back on the ice, and I certainly cannot wait for hockey season to return. I'm already starting to find myself a bit disengaged, I guess maybe is the way to say it, when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays. And it's hard not to feel that way at the moment. As they stand today, after they lose 2 or 3 to the Dodgers, following up from losing 3 out of 4 to the Yankees. There are 50 games left in the regular season, and the Rays are 5 games out of the wild card. Not great. And the optimist out there is going to tell you that there's still 50 games left and they can go on another hot run, like a hot streak like they did before July, and perhaps they can get themselves and claw themselves back into this wild card hunt. But it's not necessarily the amount of games back that you are. It's the teams you have to jump. You know, the Red Sox have won 5 in a row. They're playing great baseball right now. You know, barring a unforeseen collapse, they're going to take a wild card spot. I know the Yankees are scuffling right now. I still believe in them to a point that they'll lock up another wild card spot. The Mariners are playing really good baseball. They made some really good additions at the deadline with Eugenio Suarez, the third baseman, and Josh Naylor, the first baseman, getting both of them from the Arizona Diamondbacks and not giving up any of their top prospects to do it. I thought they had maybe the best deadline overall when you look at the value that they picked up. But you have the Texas Rangers, you have the Cleveland Guardians, and you have the Kansas City Royals. And also right behind the Rays from a half game is the Los Angeles Angels. So there's a lot of teams around there that you have to jump. You have to play outrageously good baseball over the next couple months and hope that those teams don't play their best either. And that's just asking a lot. So I don't see a path forward for the Rays to get into the postseason this year. I think that ship has long sailed. And especially with Jonathan Aranda being out right now with the fractured wrist that he has, you got a little bit of a glimpse to see what it looks like with him not in the lineup, right? We saw what the lineup looked like without Brandon Lau, and it wasn't great. And now you see it without Jonathan Aranda, and it's not great. And that's sort of the issue with the Rays is you take one big bopper out of that lineup, and all of a sudden everything gets thinned out pretty quickly. And the guy that they brought up to replace Jonathan Aranda is Tristan Gray. And I don't really understand it because Tristan Gray is not really going to play much anyway, and he's not going to make much of a difference. So troublesome time for the Rays. You look at this series against the Dodgers. Now, did we ever expect them to win this series against the Los Angeles Dodgers? No. But, you know, at least they won a game. And listen, Saturday was actually the best performance overall that the Rays have had in some time. I know that they didn't exactly have the greatest of success against Blake Snell unless you were named Yandy Diaz and he gave them all the offense they needed. But I don't know what more you could ask from the pitching in this series. You're going up against one of the best lineups in all of baseball with Ohtani and Freeman and Will Smith, who's having a fantastic year, and Mookie Betts not having the greatest year, but still, this is a really good lineup. And I don't know how much more you could ask for from Rays pitching than to not allow a single run for 18 innings, you know, and give yourself a chance. But unfortunately, this offense just could not come through. And it was another brutal watch on Friday night against Clayton Kershaw. And then it was a brutal watch yesterday against Yamamoto. So They fall to 55 and 58, 3 games under 500 now after all that work they did to get over 500 and back into contention. They've completely undone that by playing 8 and 22 baseball going back to June 29th. It's sort of hard to believe, but this is who the Rays are now. And now they go on this West Coast swing, and that's never going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. And it starts tonight where they go and play the Los Angeles Angels, a team that's right behind them. So it's a chance for the Angels to overtake the Rays in the wild card standings. And, it could get worse. And I actually believe it probably will get worse. I'm just not seeing any signs that there's going to be some magical turnaround from this team. And when I analyze this weekend, I think there's just too many guys in this lineup all of a sudden who are just giving you nothing. They're just giving you nothing. I think, Jake Mangum was a nice story early on in the season, and I think his bat kind of, stayed hot longer than any of us thought it would. He's still grinding out at bats and whatnot, but it's just not an ideal situation to have him playing almost every day like he has to right now, especially with Chandler Simpson not playing the entire series. Christopher Morel, I don't know how many opportunities. I'm almost over talking about Christopher Morel because I don't know what else there is left to say. And I said it last week, and I'll stand by it again. I can't think of a player that I've been more disappointed in that's put on a Rays uniform and came in with some semblance of hype than Christopher Morel. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I mean, I don't know if he studies his at-bats or what, but he's swinging out of his shoes. Like, the fundamentals are just so off right now with Christopher Morel at the plate, and it's been that way for basically the entirety of his Rays tenure so far, and we've had enough of a sample size right now. The dude can't play. He can't. He's not giving you any value whatsoever at the dish. So he's been a disappointment. You know who else has been a disappointment? Josh Lowe. Josh Lowe, if you take out the 2023 season for Josh Lowe, what has he done in a Tampa Bay Rays uniform? What exactly has he done? He wasn't good in 22. Last year, I cut him a little bit of slack because he had all the injuries, and it kind of put him out of whack to start the season, but he just never got into a groove. And then I guess the same thing happened this year where he got hurt, week 1, but he's been up and healthy for a while now. What's he doing? Not much. The OPS plus is under 100 again, and outside of that 2023 season, it's been under 100 for his entire career. So he's been a disappointment. Ha-Seong Kim, we know, has been a disappointment with all the injuries that he's racked up this year. They just don't have many answers right now. They don't have many answers. And I'm seeing some of the comments right here. Kevin chimed in and said Pat Burrell way more disappointing than Morel. I'll entertain Pat Burrell for sure. To be fair, Pat Burrell for me I was still pretty young when that happened, so I can't speak to the Pat Burrell experience as much as some others, but I definitely know what you mean by that one, especially with the free agent contract they gave him. But yeah, Christopher Morel, I thought we were expecting a lot more than what we've gotten, and we just simply haven't gotten much out of him. But the other thing that's frustrating me, and it reared its ugly head again in this series, and I just, for the life of me, cannot figure out what's happening here, is the bullpen management. And I know everybody has chimed in, basically. I've seen it on social media, and I've seen it on the comment section on this show. We've talked about it all year. The bullpen management from Kevin Cash. I don't get it. And yesterday was a great example. Joe Boyle didn't have his best stuff yesterday. He only generated 3 whiffs, but he was able to get through 5 innings. He really grinded through that. I think that was an admirable outing by Joe Boyle. Again, proving that he absolutely has a future as a key rotation piece of this ball club moving forward. But he makes it through 5 innings. They pull him out. I'm not upset by that. I'm not. I know that's how the Rays do business, and honestly, keeping him in there any longer, the wheels could have fallen off at any moment. And they go to Mason Englert, and Mason Englert gives you the 1 inning, but then they put him out there for the 2nd inning. And this is where I'm struggling to see what the idea was here. He gets the second inning, and this time he has to face the heart of the order. Ohtani and Freeman and Betts. He has to face the best part of one of the best lineups, if not the best lineup in baseball, second time through. He ends up throwing 47 pitches. 47 pitches. When has Mason Englert ever thrown 47 pitches in a Major League Baseball game? And why is he throwing 47 Major League pitches in a 47 pitches in a Major League Baseball game? There are 50 games left this season. You are 5 games out of the final wild card spot. Where is the sense of urgency from Kevin Cash? This needs to be all hands on deck. If a guy is showing you that he's losing his stuff or he doesn't have it, you got to take him out of the game. And we've been down this whole song and dance routine with Kevin Kelly, and thank goodness this was finally the weekend where Kevin Kelly was sent back down the Durham, way overstayed his welcome, and they continued to punt games by putting him out there in big situations. And they kept Englert in way too long, and with the way the offense was going right now, he gives up the 2 runs, and at that point, the game's over because the Rays offense was giving you nothing. And I'm just sitting there, and it's like, you traded Taj Bradley at the deadline to go get Griffin Jax from the Minnesota Twins. And for those who aren't familiar, Griffin Jax is one of the better, relievers in Major League Baseball. That was a pretty savvy move, I thought, by Eric Neander to trade a young starting pitcher who has had plenty of opportunity with the big league club that just quite frankly was not turning a corner, and he was sent down to AAA for a reason. And you get back a really good reliever in Griffin Jax, and he hadn't pitched all series yet. And it's like, go to him at that moment. Like, why make the trade for someone if you're not going to use him in a big moment? And again, I stress, there are 50 games left in the season. Sense of urgency, being quick, not being reactionary and making your decisions. But this has been Kevin Cash's MO this year with the bullpen. It's like he's trusting his guys just a little too much, and he's giving them such a long leash to get out of things. And they are losing games in part because of it. So I was really frustrated yesterday by how that went down. And then, of course, Griffin Jax ends up coming in, and he gives up a run, and he had to throw a lot of pitches and whatnot. So now I'm like, I don't even know if Griffin Jax, he probably isn't going to be available for tonight's game against the Angels. So that pushes him back even further. It's just a mess right now when you look at the way this bullpen has been handled for the majority of season from Kevin Cash. And, I've been a big Kevin Cash fan for his entire time here. I think we all have, to varying degrees, right? And I think we always sort of lauded him for the work that he's done with the payroll, restrictions, and not being able to ever out-talent the other teams and stuff like that, and the creativity that he's used. All those things have been great. But all I'm going to say is Kevin Cash is the longest tenured manager in baseball, and that's great. But at some point, there always is an expiration date on everybody. And I know that it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have for me, because I am conflicted about this, because on one hand, if Kevin Cash hit the market tomorrow as a manager available for hire, well, yeah, there's going to be a lot of teams falling over themselves to go get a 2-time AL Manager of the Year. And I understand that. And I don't know if the Rays could get someone even better. I'm just basically saying that there's an expiration date for everything. And what we've seen this season has just been unacceptable from him. The way he's handled the bullpen, some of the lineup decisions, continuing to trot Christopher Morel out there in big spots. There's been other opportunities to pinch hit batters and get some other guys from the bench who might have a better shot. We saw that in the Yankee series a little bit where he hasn't done it. It's just been odd. And maybe Kevin Cash gets to a point where he wants to try a new challenge. Maybe he sees this as, I've taken this as far as I can, and I want to go try a new challenge. And maybe that's the only way the Rays would ever entertain moving on from him. So I'm not ready to make a full declaration yet on which way I'm leaning there, but it's something I'm sort of just putting out there at the moment because I think I'm seeing a lot of fans who are sort of, saying that they're ready for Kevin Cash to go. And I see some of the comments in it as well, which I'm going to get here in a second. But either way you look at it, this season and the way that this has unraveled over the last month, to me, it's been a little shocking, to be honest with you. I'm not sure how in the world you could play as good as the Rays did throughout the end of May and through June, and then to have a total collapse like this. I never saw that coming, but that's the reality that they live in right now. I did like what they did at the deadline, to be fair. They kind of did what they typically do, and that's buy and sell. I just mentioned I did like the Griffin Jacks trade, and he's somebody you have under control for a while. I'm willing to see what this looks like, this new catcher platoon of Hunter Fiducia and Nick Fortes. And to be fair, Fiducia comes up to the plate yesterday against Yamamoto, and he smokes one to right field, 108 off the bat. And so basically in his second game playing for the Rays, he has the hardest hit ball by a Rays catcher all season in his second game. And all he's done in the minors is hit, and obviously he's been blocked at the major league level by Will Smith, who outside of Cal Raleigh is the best catcher in baseball. So I'm willing to see that through. I think that was a worthy sort of investment to make and whatnot. I'm not chapped at all about the fact that they traded Jose Caballero whatsoever. I don't really care that they trade him to the Yankees. It is what it is. So I kind of like what they did. Oh, I also like Curtis Mead. I think for all the Curtis Mead truthers out there who were so convinced that he was going to figure this out at some point in a Rays uniform, didn't happen. And they get back Adrian Hauser, who's going to be going tonight, his first outing for the Rays. And, really good sinker, limits walks, misses barrels, all the things that the Rays sort of covet. And he's been having a really strong season ever since the White Sox picked him up for nothing. So I like what they kind of did, but at this point, I think we're full steam ahead looking to 2026 because 2025, in my opinion, looks like a wash. All right, let me hit some of the comments here. I see you guys chiming in on the Rays a little bit right here. Michael LaRue. Baseball prospects carry a lot of promise and trade value mainly because they're under team control for so long. But with the new CBA approaching, that could change. The Rays should be more aggressive. Well, they are going to have an ownership change, so we'll see if that yields into a different philosophy for the Rays. I don't want them to throw away everything they've done, but when it's time to be aggressive and you feel like you have the ball club to go for it, of course, I would like to see the Rays do that, but there was no reason to do it at this deadline for sure. Douglas Batista, I was at the Rays game on Friday. The Rays versus that LA lineup looked like the little sisters of the poor of the Trenton Church League. Yeah, that lineup is no joke. I wanted to get out to one of those games this weekend, but as those who went know, it was not an easy ticket to get, and it was pretty expensive. But it would have been really cool. I've been fortunate to go to a couple Rays games when Ohtani was on the Angels and got to see him play. And he just has this sort of aura to him, right? When he's at the plate, and it's just like this buzz. And like, even though you're not rooting for him to do something good against your team, you're kind of just anticipating it. And he's been a Rays killer throughout his entire career. But it would have been cool to see him in that sort of environment where it's such an intimate setting in a 10,000 seat ballpark to get a chance to see some Hall of Famers like that. But hope you had a good time regardless of the fact that that game on Friday was pretty rough for the Rays. And Douglas adds, can't expect to win when you only score 4 runs over 3 days. Yep. When your pitching goes 18 scoreless against that lineup, you want to hope to win that series, and they just couldn't do it. Buck's Basement. I'm over the baseball product. Just get the new owners in here. This is not going to get any better. I'm shocked Kelly is still on this team. Yeah, they sent Kelly down to AAA. I no reason for us to see him again in a Rays uniform as far as I'm concerned moving forward. But yeah, I think a lot of people share your sentiment is we're just sort of trying to get through these final 50 games, and hopefully everything goes to plan with this sell that's on the way, and hopefully brighter and better times for Tampa Bay Rays baseball. Mario Christian, how on earth did the Rays get Hauser for Mead? Baffling. I don't know. I mean, the White Sox, Adrian Hauser is 32 years old, And this sort of hot streak that he's on right now on the mound, this is like the first time in his career he's really shown to be this pitcher, and it's an 11-game sample size. So the White Sox got him for nothing on the waiver wire, I believe, and they were able to turn that into Curtis Mead, and they're going to try to turn Curtis Mead, and they can give him more playing time than the Rays certainly had. So maybe I've been wrong all this time, and if you give him his consistent at-bats, maybe he'll figure it out at some point, but it wasn't going to happen in a Rays uniform, and the Rays will take Adrian Hauser and see what they can get out of him. He adds, realistically, the Rays need to win 6 to 8 games on this road trip to stay afloat, plus get over 500. Yeah, this is a 12-game road trip. I mean, they have to go 8-4 at the very least, in my opinion. But is that doable? I don't think it is. Not with the way they're playing right now. And after they get past the Angels, they got to go play a Seattle team who, how I mentioned, is really hot right now. The Athletics, they have a really good lineup, and then you have to play 3 in San Francisco. So, 8-4, I think, is the minimum, but I can't see it right now for this team, to be honest with you. Bucks Basement, MLB is probably so happy the Rays have crashed and burned so they don't have to worry about playoff baseball and Steinbrenner. Yeah, isn't it funny how we talked about that, and that was literally like when that article came out, that led to the Rays beginning their downturn. It's kind of interesting. We all started having these discussions about playoff baseball and Steinbrenner and whatnot, and then immediately the Rays went on this downturn. Kind of interesting how that worked out. Mario Christian says Cash's motto is to not chase deficits, but he'll be more aggressive when winning the game versus losing. Well, again, I just don't be reactionary. If a guy doesn't have it on the mound, get him out of the game. Period. And I feel like Kevin Cash has been managing the game in a very reactionary way this year, and I think they've definitely punted some games that they shouldn't have. And I think it's evident by the fact when you look at the Rays' expected wins and loss, their expected wins and loss is 61-52. They're 55-58. They should be better than what they are, but they're not. And I think a lot of these decisions have come back to bite them. James is on the get rid of Cash bandwagon. He says it's time for Cash to go. Batting Morel at cleanup. He should have been fired then. Cash knows he is done when the new owners arrive. I mean, we don't know. We don't know yet. I mean, I'm not advocating for Kevin Cash to get fired or anything like that. I'm just sort of having the conversation about it because it's just been baffling this year, as I've mentioned. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we'll see. All that stuff will work itself out as we move forward. It would be a nice secondary prize if the Rays can win more than 81 games. I mean, right now, they are screaming 81-81 or 80-82 like they were last year. At the moment, James thinks they're going to lose 90 games. The Rays will lose 90 games. Case closed. Cash is done. We'll see. Mario Christian, hopefully these new catchers can throw out opposing base runners stealing bases. Well, it wasn't a good start this weekend. Hunter Fiducia had a rough one behind the plate yesterday, trying to throw runners out. Not even competitive. So they just don't have a perfect answer back there. All right. That's enough race talk. It's starting to upset me because this is just crazy how this season has gone off the rails. So let's take our second break. The NFL. I have to get into the Micah Parsons stuff because that broke on late Friday afternoon, and obviously that is the talk of the NFL world. Should the Bucks entertain it? We have to talk about it. Back and forth here on the JP Peterson Show.
Hey, JP here for my concierge medical professional, Chris Lugo, PA. You've heard him on the show for a couple of years where he shares invaluable medical, nutritional, and supplement advice. With Chris, it's like having a medical provider as your best friend. What I love about this concierge service is the convenience and support he offers. I can text or call him 24/7 with any questions or concerns, and he'll promptly call in a prescription if needed. No office visits or co-pays required. It gives me peace of mind knowing I have someone genuinely invested in my health, not just focused on insurance profits. And the best part, the Bay Area Modern Medical Center's personal concierge service is more affordable than you might think. Don't let insurance companies dictate your health care. Take control of your health and wellness today. Visit BAMMC.com for more information and to schedule your initial free consultation. Empower yourself and take charge of your personal health with BAMMC.com. Hey, JP here for the Gold and Diamond Source. And you know I'm always trying to find ways to save you money or make you money. Well, here's a great idea from Julie and Steve Weintraub at the Gold and Diamond Source. Gold is at an all-time high, so if you bring in your old jewelry, Steve and Julie will buy it off you and offer you the highest trade-in values of the year. It's the perfect time to upgrade what you're not wearing into something you'll never want to take off. So take advantage of that right now. The custom engagement rings to birthstones, tennis bracelets, diamond studs, whatever's on your wish list, the Gold and Diamond Source can make it happen. And did you know they also have the largest selection of any men's jewelry in the area? A great new section there. Check that out. They have free services like free settings, free cleanings, free appraisals, all that stuff right there at the Gold and Diamond Source. Family owned and trusted for over 40 years. Great folks over there. We love promoting these great local companies. None better than the Gold and Diamond Source. 3800 Ulmerton Road, always online at thegoldendiamondsource.com. JP here for the Jeeves Law Group and my man Scott Jeeves. If you're going to hire an attorney, do you want some guy looking for a quick settlement and a quick buck, or do you want an attorney with some chops? Scott is a board-certified civil trial lawyer and a certified circuit court mediator. Been practicing in the Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. He is a peer-reviewed AV preeminent-rated civil trial lawyer. They just don't hand out those classifications. He's been the lead class action counsel on many complex consumer protection cases and has handled hundreds of serious personal injury cases. He's dedicated his career to protecting injured victims and is committed to vigorously representing you. We're local, we're trusted, and we get results. Personal injury and personal attention. Call for a free case evaluation. That's 888-9-JEEVES. That's 888-9-JEEVES. The Jeeves Law Group. Summer is coming. Do not get caught with your unit unprepared. Your AC unit, of course. The awesome folks at Third Generation Plumbing and AC have a special going on right now. You get a free 1-year maintenance package with any purchase of a new unit. They have special 60-month financing as well, so you don't need a huge chunk up front. Third Generation has an impeccable reputation built over 30 years of doing business. They do plumbing, AC, mechanical work, anything you need around the house. They are trusted folks. Go to the website and read the 5-star reviews. Deidre said, great company that always arrives timely. We have used them for our AC both in home and business and have been very happy. The staff is knowledgeable and professional. I would recommend Third Generation again and again. So give Third Generation a call at 813-961-8024 or go to thirdgenerationplumbing.com.
Ciao, Paolo Tini here, owner of Caffè Paradiso, voted number 3 People's Choice Award on Open Table. I want to thank all our loyal family of customers that have been enjoying our great traditional Italian dishes we make from scratch every day. It's a great family story we're proud of. Our family moved from Rimini, Italy in 1984. My dad, Caesar, started Donatello, and that's where I got the start in the restaurant business. I started Caffè Paradiso on South McDill in 1995, and we've been there ever since. From our traditional ossobuco, a veal slow roast for 4 hours, to our daily fresh catch, the Gruppo Paradiso, with a piccata sauce and lobster claw meat, homemade pasta like lasagna, farfalle salchicha, which is a bow tie pasta homemade with fresh sausage. Hold on a minute, JP's favorite.
I love it.
So come and have a glass of wine with me on South McDill. Get a reservation on Open Table and see all our 5-star reviews. Ciao, see you soon at Paradiso.
Let's go.
Right now, back to the show on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show here on a Monday. Eddie's filling in solo here for JP Peterson after the week. The early part of the show, we talked a little bit about Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask and injury, and if Trask is good enough to be the backup quarterback for the Bucs moving forward. Should they entertain bringing a veteran? Talked a little bit about the new offensive line for a sort of setup that they were running at times in practice this weekend with Barton at left tackle, what that means. and, of course, a Rays discussion as well. But I wanted to shift gears a little bit to another big NFL note that came out on Friday, and that was the Micah Parsons trade request. And by the way, I see your comment down there. Sorry about the music like that. It's one of those things where, like, in my headphones, it's to a certain level, but it might come out a little louder for y'all. So apologies about that if the music is sometimes a little loud and whatnot. But anyways, Micah Parsons put out the trade request officially, saying that he no longer wants to play for the Dallas Cowboys, and this has been sort of coming for a while now. I never thought it would get to this point, to be honest with you, and simply because I thought this was a layup for the Cowboys, or at least for any other franchise. I think it would have been, but as we know, the Dallas Cowboys are just not a normal franchise. In many ways, they are the great reality show of the NFL, and everything that happens throughout the offseason, every time Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones or whoever there gets in front of a microphone or in front of a camera, it's going to be something big, and it's going to be something that makes you scratch your head of, what did they say? Why are they saying this? Why are they in front of a camera right now? But it typically is entertaining, at the very least, and more entertaining than what they do on the football field, and that's a shame. But I never thought it would get to this point because I thought this would be such a layup. This is Micah Parsons. This is one of the best, not just pass rushers in the NFL, but one of the best players in the NFL, who ever since he stepped foot in the league, all he's done is produce. 52 sacks in 4 seasons, defensive rookie of the year in his first season. He's been on the short list for the AP defensive player of the year in every season he's been in the league. He's done all this stuff. And so it seems like a no-brainer of, okay, when it's time to pay you, we're going to reward you for being the dominant player that you are, and we're going to make you the highest paid player at your position. That's what any other functioning franchise would do. But the Cowboys have allowed it to get to this point where it's kind of become just a completely toxic situation. And, I have to hand it to Micah because he's not allowing himself to get played by the system and the way the Jones have sort of run this operation. What they're doing now is nothing new that they've done over the 30 some odd years, however long it's been that they've been the owners of this team. They've had many contract negotiations that have been really public and a little dirty out there, and they always come down to the finish line when you look at Dak Prescott's contract, when you look at CeeDee Lamb's contract, and Micah Parsons, is starting to show you that, hey, I'm the player here, I'm the all-pro, I play a premium position, I'm in my prime, every other team would want me, I have the control here, you don't. And I think that's what Micah Parsons is doing here and sort of signaling to the Dallas Cowboys. Do I truly believe that Micah Parsons no longer wants to play for the Cowboys and wants out? I don't. Now, that's just me speaking, because I just think this is the latest part of this game that is public, in that you put in the trade request, and that typically is now the shot in the arm for the organization to go, okay, now we need to do something. And I have to think that's what he's trying to do with this trade request. And that's probably what's going to happen, is the Dallas will eventually concede to what they want to do, and they will pay Micah Parsons, and it'll get over the line. But why does it have to be this public? Why does it have to be this messy? When I see something like this happen, I'm reminded of how good the Bucs have it with Jason Licht and the Glazers. Tristan Wirfs, from the moment he stepped foot in the NFL, has been one of the top handful tackles in all of football. And when it was time for him to get his contract, the Buccaneers made him the highest paid left tackle in the history of football. Why? Because he proved that he deserved it, and he earned it with his play on the field, and it was the right thing to do. It was a layup. When Antoine Winfield Jr., after his 2023 season, went out and had a dominant season and was an all-pro at safety, what did the Bucs do? They made him the highest paid safety in football. Why? Because he earned it with his play on the field, and it was the right thing to do. This is the same situation. It's the exact same situation. And somehow the Cowboys and Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones have found a way to muddy this up and turn this into a whole firestorm where you have players now, both former and current on the Cowboys, who are now speaking out about this and begging Jerry Jones to just pay him whatever he wants, because they know that without Micah Parsons on the field, the Dallas Cowboys are going nowhere. He's that valuable. So I kind of respect the fact that Micah Parsons is the player that is sort of sticking up to this organization and to this ownership group that has been just really odd in the way they handle these things for so many years. He's finally being the player to go, no, I have the power here. I'm not letting you shift the narrative around. I'm not letting you drag my name through the mud, which Jerry has basically done a really good job of doing. And, if you want to play hardball, I'll play it too. Again, I have to think at some point this is going to get done and they'll have a contract and Micah Parsons will be out there on September 4th against Philadelphia Eagles. And perhaps that's all that matters. But it didn't have to be this way. And I think that's my overarching point on it. Now, in the event that I'm wrong and Micah Parsons does want out of Dallas for real, and he feels like the relationship is irreparable and he's done playing for Jerry Jones, if that is truly what he wants, and he was made available at some point to the Dallas Cowboys, obviously every team is going to be asking themselves, well, should we try to go after Micah Parsons? If you're the Bucs, the answer is 1,000% yes. 1,000% yes. And I'm only bringing this up because I saw some discussion about this week because, of course, we did this thing over the weekend where it's like, should the Bucs go after Micah Parsons? And I saw a shocking, and I mean shocking, amount of Bucs fans who were like, that's too much to pay for him. I'd rather just hold on to our draft picks, and I would rather just continue to develop our guys. And whoa, let's stop and analyze real quick. Let's just say, and I saw one of the mock trades that was put out there over the weekend was trading 2 first-round picks and Yaya Diaby for Micah Parsons. And I saw a lot of people saying no to that. Those first-round picks are going to be in the back half of the first round. These aren't top 10 picks. Not all first-round picks are the same. They're not. So the way I would look at that potential deal is you're trading 2 picks in the back of the first round, especially if you're landing Micah Parsons. The Buccaneers, I mean, you think they're a Super Bowl contender now. They go near the top of the conversation with Micah Parsons. So that's what we're talking about here. You acquire a player like Micah Parsons, you go to the top of the conversation when it comes to contenders in the NFC. That's number one. But people were also saying, well, let's trust in the development of Yaya Diaby. Can I caution you and just bring this up? Yaya Diaby is 4 days younger than Micah Parsons. So yeah, in your head, it feels like, oh, well, Yaya Diaby is much newer to the NFL. He's got all this development ahead of him. Why can't he become this stud and whatnot? He's 4 days. Wait, did I switch it around here? He's 4 days old. I'm sorry. No, he's 4 days younger. He's 4 days younger than Micah Parsons. So what are we talking about here? I don't think it ever gets to this. This is probably a completely unrealistic discussion to even have. But just because I saw so many Bucs fans who were like, that's too much to pay, and, we can't give up Yaya. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you do. And if you're ever presented with that moment and you don't, you're going to be kicking yourself for not doing it. Micah Parsons is the kind of player that if you have a chance to get, you put all your resources to go get him and you pay him whatever he wants because he is that damn good. And on this team, he puts you in firmly into that. I said there's 10 to 12 teams who could realistically win a Super Bowl every year. He puts you somewhere in the top 5, in my opinion. That's how dominant he is at the position that he plays. So just something worth keeping an eye on. But again, I don't think it ever gets to that. I think eventually he'll sign his new contract with the Cowboys. But again, don't know how in the world that how it got to that. I think the situation's a lot different than what's going on in Cincinnati with Trey Hendrickson and what's going on in Washington with Terry McLaurin. I don't think those ones are as cut and dry of, okay, these players are really good. We need to pay them whatever they want. I think that's different, because Trey Hendrickson, for starters, is going to turn 31 years old pretty soon. So you have to take age into account there. You just do. I know he's got the most sacks of any player over the last 2 years, but 31 years old is 31 years old. You have to take age into account. And they're already paying Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, top dollar. That's a hard deal to make. But it's because it's the Bengals, and the Bengals have notoriously been cheap. They haven't been this offseason or the last couple off seasons, but that's what they've been for the majority of their time as a franchise. So everybody is going after the Bengals. But I understand the Bengals not just wanting to give $40 million or whatever Trey Hendrickson wants. I get that. I get it when it comes to the Washington Commanders and Terry McLaurin. Because like Trey Hendrickson, Terry McLaurin is going to be 30 years old here in about a month. And you can't just pay him whatever he wants because of that. Like age is a real thing. Terry McLaurin is an outstanding player. There's no doubt about it. But I wouldn't be willing to just write a blank check for Terry McLaurin. I certainly wouldn't want to do it. And you don't have to. I think there has to be in that situation a little bit of give and take from the player who should understand that the team that you've been on has not been any good up until last year, where you had this run to the NFC Championship game that came out of nowhere, and you finally had some success, and now all of a sudden you want to get paid and you want to do all this. Well, it's like you finally are good now, and it's like by taking up a huge chunk of the salary in that situation, you're going to cost your team the ability to continue to add in the Super Bowl window that they have. And I look at like Mike Evans, for an example. I bring him up because him and Terry McLaurin are, about a year apart when it comes to age. You don't see Mike Evans asking for $30 or $35 million, which he could have commanded on the open market. You don't see him doing that. You don't have to do it. See, I don't believe it's all just like every situation is the same. I think there's context to everything when it comes to this stuff. And I think in those two cases, McLaurin and Hendrickson, I think age absolutely plays a role. And that's probably why those two deals are not done. But when it comes to Micah Parsons, that's completely different because he's playing a premium position on defense as an edge rusher. He's got the production to match it up, and he's 26 years old. Just get it done so we can move on from this big media story and go to the season. But that's Dallas's problem to deal with. All right, we're going to cut it out a little early today here on a Monday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the show. Really appreciate it. Good discussion about the Bucs. And that Micah Parsons stuff, because it was the biggest story and is the biggest story going on around the NFL. All right, I will see you guys next Monday. JP will be back. JP will be back. Sorry, JP will be back this week as we get closer to the first preseason game on Saturday, and I'll be back on Monday, and we'll break it all down as well. Everybody have a great day out there in Tampa Bay, and Ham will be back with you guys tomorrow.